Well, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be back again, and this time it's a very special episode because we are doing a collaboration with what is a very fascinating page that every Hyderabadi would like. So first things first, all three of us are Hyderabadis, and those in Hyderabad, everybody knows that there's a particular vibe that Hyderabadis have towards each other. They always talk about a lot of things, biryani, and there's a lot of things that are always in common. So firstly, let me introduce our guest, Mr. Yunus Lasania. He's running a very popular page called the Hyderabad History Project. We'll talk about it in detail. We also have a very he's a very dear friend of ours, and he's one who has always encouraged us to talk and see the bath. He's Samir. He's also joining us, and all three of us are Hyderabadis. So
I,
it's going to be a uh, fun conversation. So starting off, bhai, so tell me how you started off this page and what, yeah, how did it happen? How did you
so,
get that?
so I was actually working for the Hindu. I think in 2000, till 2017, I worked with the Hindu. So while I was working there in 2015, October, November is when my boss changed, and that is when Shirish Nani Shetty, who's still there, he was my boss. So basically, what happened is 2016 is when I think Intact, the Indian National, what is that? Indian National Trust for Cultural and something. I'm not able to. I think Cultural and Architectural Heritage. I don't
Right,
remember
right.
the full form, but basically, Intact has its yearly list of monuments that they give an award to. So that year, they also give an award to the St. John's Church in Secunderabad, which is very close to where I live, in about 5 minutes away. तो मैं वो चर्च को जाके देखा और वो देखे बाद I realized that the church is like 5 minutes away from my house. And then I also realized that this is the oldest church in Secunderabad and things like that. So I wrote about the church, and that's how I started writing about Hyderabad. Sorry, it was not that church. I think. Let me hold on 1 minute. I think it was the pipe organ in that church. I'm not exactly sure, but there was one more church called the Wesley Garrison Church in Secunderabad near. This is near what do you call that? Karkhana ke thoda aage hai. So Wesley Garrison Church is about 160 something years old, and that is also one more interesting. So I wrote about all that. That's when I got interested in history, and wahan se then I realized that there's so much of history in Hyderabad, and koi zyada likh rahe bhi nahi bol ke. So I started writing about it, but then while I was writing, Sirish and I would also always discuss, see, whatever we write will only go to print the next day or publish after a story gets published. It's basically lost. And also, I realized that a lot of people in Hyderabad, among journalists, see, I don't have a problem in with anything in general, but see, a lot of journalists who are in Hyderabad are also not from Hyderabad. So particularly for them, it's mostly about only getting a story for the day. They don't really actually particularly care about anything as such. Also, it's because I am from here, I have a little more attachment to my city. So it's always something that I'm a little more passionate about. So I thought, okay, if this journalism thing is something I can do anyway, but then I realized that maybe there's something more that needs to be done. So that's how I started the Hyderabad History Project, which basically started off like a blog. Uh, so that I think started in 2016 ending as a blog, and then 2017 I think early 2017 is when I wrote a very detailed article on the last Nizam's 50th death anniversary. So that also, then after that I realized that slowly chalo theek hai so that's when it hit me that blog is something that not everybody will open and read, and then I realized maybe if I start a page where I can post smaller bits of information with good photos, it will be more interesting. That's how it started. So that's how I started one topic after another. And so the whole point of that I realized is that to just put little bit more hard work in general. Thoda hard work dale to kya hai? It's just more. It's just authenticating something. Apart from just writing something. Thoda it's like doing a little bit more research than normal, so that people also believe, at least when you mention sources or something like that, थोड़ा लोगों को भी थोड़ा भरोसा रहता है कि ठीक है, this information is genuine बोल के. So that's how it started, and then of course from there, I'm pretty sure you would have seen how I've been posting and stuff. So that's how it started.
And for those who do not know, he also organizes these walks, which I have not been able to attend, but then I've been following it very well, and they're terrific. And so, Samir, over to you. What is your, if you have anything to ask, go ahead.
Yeah. So the last time I thought about going on a heritage walk, the lockdown was up. I was like, oh my God, I
Okay.
have to do something. Yeah. So that was a time when I got back to Hyderabad. Okay. So it was very bad for me. And then I thought, see, everybody's so different in their own way in Hyderabad. I don't know why is there so much diversity here? I'm really fascinated since my childhood. Although I did not go out much. I was pretty much an introvert, I guess. So yeah, I always wondered why the word mixed pot is being thrown around a lot. Melting pot, right? I'm sorry. And then I just wanted to ask, what's your take on it? How do you think Hyderabad has become truly global in such a way?
I mean, if you look at history, Hyderabad has always been global. Even the people who built Hyderabad, the Golcondas also. Hyderabad was a global city where they used to have markets with foreigners and things like that. So at all points of time, it was global. But then, see, at every step you had different kinds of migration coming into the city. For example, you had the Africans, and then under the Nizams, later they brought in these Yemeni soldiers, the Arab soldiers from Yemen. So, and then you had a lot of people from Iran anyway who were already here. And then you have the typical migration from here and there. So that way, like you have a lot of Marwadis who came in about 150 years ago under the Nizams at different points they came. So that way, it's I don't think any. I think it is literally. I mean, if you look at history also, even other cities like say Hampi in Vijayanagar in Karnataka, Hampi also was a global city in that sense. So Hyderabad's existence itself was always that it was meant to be a big city like that. Just that now in this context, when you look at post all this migration, post independence, I guess about 100, about 200, 300, 400 years ago, all these things would have been normal. It's that now that when you have this concept of nationality, and then you realize, oh, this person, I'm an Indian, but this fellow was born here, but he clearly looks different. Maybe he comes from, maybe his ancestors came from somewhere else, so something like that. But then honestly, I mean, for that matter, anybody can have descent from anywhere for as long. I mean, it makes no difference, to be very honest. That's the best part about Hyderabad in general. You have, like, you had the
True.
British, so you have a lot of Anglo Indians living here. So in that sense, you do have a lot of I think Hyderabad is one of the few cities where you have, say, for example, you have a small Parsi community, you have Africans, you have Arabs. Half the city is Telugu, and then you have people with ancestry from different parts of the world, like say Afghanistan, or even people from yeah, I mean people from Iran. So it is a fairly mixed cosmopolitan city in that sense, with different cultural aspects coming in from that. Different parts of history have brought in different cultural aspects. So yeah, that's how our city has grown.
How old do you think like how old does the history of Hyderabad go back to? Because I once read that Golconda was actually a mud fort of the Kakatiya. उसके बाद बाकी additions होते जा रहे हैं तो how old do you think is cities in general like
See,
1561 or
under
something?
the 1591 is when Hyderabad was built, but Golconda Fort was already a city before Hyderabad. So the Golconda Fort that we see was actually a walled city before Hyderabad was built. Only so the Hyderabad is basically Hyderabad was to Golconda Fort what Hitech City is to Hyderabad today. It was an extension. Uh, Now about Kakatiya, see the thing is the capital was very far at Warangal, and it does not really make sense for anyone to stay so far away from the capital. Golconda Fort was only a very small part of the Kakatiya kingdom, and it was not a proper fort. It was a very small mud fort at best. So it was only built where Hyderabad stands also today. There was no city as such under the Kakatiyas. Golconda Fort also was only developed under the Qutub Shahis. There was some fort little before the Qutub Shahis. It was I think the Raja of Warangal had control of it, and but it was not the major fort that we see today. The fort that we see today was something that was built very specifically by the Qutub Shahis, who developed it and turned it into a global walled city.
Samir has a question, I think, about Qutub Shahis and how they started off. Samir, over to you.
Yeah. So whenever Tanasha is being used in any culture, especially North India, it's been a misnomer for a dictator or someone who is really authoritative in a
Yeah.
sense. But it's also known, moreover, that he had Akarna and Madana in his court, and this semi-mythical figure called Sri Ram Das was there. So, what do you think of this?
See, Ramdas was not a mythical thing. He was real. He was basically a relative of Madanna. So Abul Hasan was the last Qutub Shahi king, and Abul Hasan's nickname was Tana. That was given to him by his spiritual advisor
Oh,
or spiritual guide, Sayyid Shah Raju Kattal, who was a Sufi. Sayyid Shah Raju Kattal has a grave. His tomb is near Charminar, and he was a spiritual guide of Abul Hasan. So Abul Hasan basically, when he becomes the king, by that point of time, the Mughals are forcing him to pay money and things like that, and somebody basically he refuses to pay the tributes to Aurangzeb. So because of that, the
mm-hmm.
Mughals actually in Delhi, not just the Mughals, the Mughal courtiers, the Mughals basically they spoil his name, saying so. Tana becomes Tana Shah. Shah means king after he becomes the king. So they basically start misusing or spreading false information that they basically make him look like a tyrant king. And because of that, the word Tana Shah becomes negative. So that's why they keep saying Tana Shahi nahi chalegi. But people from Hyderabad should not read it, so should not say that, because he was our king. And all
Right.
those things that were written about Tana Shah was actually false. It was not real. They just did not like him. That's about it. So that is
मतलब
a,
मतलब
yeah,
उसका पूरा नाम बदनाम कर दिया, उसका जो भी है व्हाट इज इज्जत उसका था वो सब they wanted to tarnish it. That brings me to this question about Qutub Shahi's real contribution. So there's always this this misnomer that everything of Hyderabad is actually started by the Asaf Jahi kingdom,
Nizam.
but then इसका असली इतिहास देखोगे तो it's actually Qutub Shahi that led the whole thing. So how do you? What is the main contribution if you compare? अगर
So
compare किया
Qutub
तो
Shahi's Qutub Shahi's main contribution would actually be the culture of Hyderabad. That was not created by the Nizam. The Nizams were North Indians. They were from Delhi. They were not even Hyderabadi in any sense. And they had Central Asian descent. The Qutub Shahis were from Iran. It's a very different culture altogether. The Nizams were basically high-ranking soldiers under the Mughals. So when they came, they brought in their North Indian sensibilities. So it's just that they let people here do what they want, and they also adapted to local Hyderabadi customs. So in a way, I would say that after the third, fourth Nizam is when they properly adapted to Hyderabad and became more or less a part of this culture. But if you look at the early Nizams, they did things how they used to from where they came from. So the reason why everybody talks about the Nizam is because, see, the thing is, when Hyderabad was the capital of the Golconda Empire, the Golconda Empire basically was destroyed. Hyderabad was completely destroyed to the extent where we don't actually know how Hyderabad used to look like under the Qutub Shahis. Because when Aurangzeb captured Hyderabad, he just completely destroyed it fully to the extent where uh, there's nothing left except maybe Charminar, Char Kaman, the Makkah Masjid, the Badshah Ashur Khana, and maybe about 10, 15, maybe about 30 buildings in total. Apart from the fort and the Qutub Shahi tombs, you will find maybe 50 at best is what you will find in the entire city today, because the entire city was destroyed. So we don't actually know but the Qutub Shahis basically created a huge the cultural synthesis of Hyderabad goes back to the Qutub Shahis, because see, and the Qutub Shahis also were patrons of Telugu. They promoted Telugu to such an extent that Telugu poets were in the court. They did not actually say at all points of time the people in the court, the second most powerful people, were always local Telugu courtiers. So they maintained that cultural harmony under the Nizams. So the reason why Nizams are given, very specifically the last Nizam is given a lot of credit, because most of the modern institutions that we have in Hyderabad today were built under the last Nizam when he modernized Hyderabad. So it's more obvious, his mark is there. But you can't compare the Nizams to the Qutub. The Qutub Shahis were actual kings. The Nizams were
right.
not kings; they were governors. And even after the Mughal Empire was taken over by the British, the Nizams never declared their independence. They were basically working under the British Empire. So the Nizams were not even actual kings. They were just, it was a princely state. That's about it.
So there's this question about the origin of the name. You have in the last couple of months, I think. I mean, this controversy has been raising all the time. हैदराबाद या भाग्यनगर असली नाम क्या है? तो भाग्यनगर का कुछ असली इतिहास है या कुछ it's always bandied around like
So
casually?
the problem is that it is not also the thing is it is not Bhagya, it is actually Bhagnagar, BHAG or BAGNAG after Bhagmati. It is not Bhagyamati, it is only Bhagmati. Okay. So the thing is, the story is that Muhammad Quli Qutub Shah, the founder of Hyderabad, was in love with this Hindu courtesan by the name Bhagmati. And the story says that after he built Hyderabad, he named it to Bhagnagar first, and then when she converted to Islam, he then renamed it to Hyderabad after she took on the name of Hyder Mahal. The problem with that story is that, first of all, Muhammad Quli Qutub Shah's mother was a woman named Bhagirathi, and this is official on record. His father, Ibrahim Qutub Shah, was married to a Telugu princess from the Vijayanagar Empire. So, Ibrahim Qutub Shah was also a patron of Telugu, and so Muhammad Quli Qutub Shah was basically half Telugu, half Iranian, or at least quarter Iranian. So, by that compunction, he would not, by that logic, he would not have any compunctions about marrying or being in love with a Hindu woman. It should not have ideally been a problem. This story of, most likely, if you ask me, there was some woman he was in love with. There's no doubt about it, because there are small evidence. Like, it's not, that is the whole problem. There's no proper evidence till late. It's like only circumstantial evidence. There's no physical trace of Bhagmati ever that has been found. But then if you in the official Qutub Shahi history itself, Tariq Qutub Shah, it is mentioned that Hyderabad was renamed to Hyderabad about 17 years after it was built. So if you look at the old Portuguese maps also, some of them do mention the city as Bhagnagar, not Bhagyanagar, Bhagnagar. This Bhagya Lakshmi temple came up only after much later in the 1950s. Okay, the 50s, there was a small temple. As far as what I've been told by the ASI is that a bus driver basically hit the pillar of the Charminar while driving, while taking a sharp turn. So somebody put up a stone there and started worshipping it. I think it was only after the 1979 riots in Hyderabad that the temple became like a big major thing. But the temple has nothing to do with it. The temple has nothing to do with Bhagmati also. That is the irony. Okay, it's a completely different thing. I have a feeling the people running it might actually be descendants of North Indians. I'm not sure about that. I have my doubts about the people who run the temple, that if they're even from Hyderabad or not. So it's basically a political thing. Mostly it's a result of the cabal that the BJP RSS trying to put a stamp that we should also have a presence in the old city. I mean, the thing is, in the old city also, the number of Muslims are not 100%. It is actually 60 or 65% max. Because if you look at the voting patterns also, the number of votes that MIM gets also is about, I think OIC got about 5 lakh votes last time. TRS got some votes and BJP got some 3 lakh plus votes. So there are 3 lakh votes and MIM has 5 lakh votes. And then there is Congress and then there is TRS. So there are some votes there also, which means that it's not like the Muslims are 100%. There's no, even in the other seats also, in Nampalli also, BJP, MIM does not win that. I mean, MIM wins easily, but it's not like Muslims are 100% anywhere, like in that sense. If even a small deviation will mean that MIM will lose someday. At some point, it might happen, if you ask me. So yeah, that's what it is. And as far as the name is concerned, I see the thing is, it obviously, I feel there was somebody, but the thing is, it absolutely makes no difference to Hyderabad whether she existed or not. And Hyderabad has been known as Hyderabad right from then itself. So there's no point talking about it anymore. So that's what I feel.
Samir, you had the questions about the languages that we are using and style of, there's a difference. Go on about, ask off. Samir?
Excuse me?
Yeah, you wanted to ask
about... the connection is unstable, I guess.
No, it's fine.
I wanted to... Yeah. Okay. I have another question, but it's from my side. Okay. So when I was a kid around 10 or 12 years of age, right, my grandma, she used to tell me stories about how Operation Polo happened and how they used to cook their food in earthen pots. They used to run into the fields whenever there was this Razakar problem, right?
Right.
What can you tell me about that? So
I mean,
the image still it's really vivid in my mind. What exactly happened there?
it's a very long thing. I can't tell you in 20 minutes also. It's actually a very
I know.
detailed this thing. But basically, the thing is, if I try to tell you in summary, after independence, the last Nizam basically did not join India. The Hyderabad state was not the only one. You had India, Kashmir, Bhopal, Travancore, and one more. I'm not sure of which one, but 4, 5 states refused to join India and they wanted to be independent. Hyderabad was the largest one that
Yeah.
did not want to be part of India, and that really worried Nehru and Patel, also especially after what happened in Kashmir. So it was all, see, they were negotiating, but the problem was that in Hyderabad, this MIM was there. So the MIM today is not the same MIM that was there. The MIM then,
Okay.
it was, what happened was basically in 46, the president of the MIM was a man named Qasim Rizvi. That fellow, he started the Razakars. Razakars, the word Razakar means volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a fact that they went
Oh.
around indulging in a lot of violence. They went around targeting non-Muslims. They went around also targeting. See, it's a very complicated matter because a lot of the Razakars were also non-Hindus also. They also joined the Razakars, and they joined the Razakars
Mm-hmm.
to protect their lands from the communists in Telangana. And many of
Oh.
them, many of the and a lot of the basically the Razakars, it was like a private militia. And because the last Prime Minister of Hyderabad, Mir Laik Ali, was a sympathizer of the MIM, he let the Razakars do what they want. So they went around terrorizing people in general. That's what your grandmother would have probably told you about, that the Razakars came and did this and did that. So a lot of people have bad memories
Yeah.
of that time because they were really scared to. It was a pretty bad time. So that is what happened. The result of that is in 1948, the last Nizam, because of because of the Razakars, because of the communist movement in Telangana, and because of everything, the Indian government sent the
Mm-hmm.
army in September 1948. September 17, the state of Hyderabad was annexed to India,
Yes.
and the army stayed back in Hyderabad and in Telangana because of the communists. So the communist movement, the Telangana Porata, Telangana Armed Struggle, which is basically a peasant revolution.
Sahaja Poratam. Yeah.
It continued up to 1951, 21st October, until they called it off. So the army
Yeah.
was kept here to hunt down communist rebels. So that is the story. And as a result of Operation Polo, a lot of, because of the, I think it is also because of the Razakars that a lot of people were angry with what they were doing. So as a result of that, they indulged in a lot of communal violence targeting Muslims after Operation Polo. So that resulted in more people. So it's a very bad time in general. So I've written about this in detail. I have written about this in detail. So maybe if anybody wants, I can just go through my posts and it's all there. I've put out all the information.
So there's one, a
I,
big thing about Hyderabad. So everybody calls it Hyderabadi. Like and some people confuse it that it's actually Urdu, but it's not. You have clarified
Yeah,
it, and
yeah.
it's actually Dakhni. So what is it about it? What is Dakhni, and how does it?
So see, it's very simple. Yeah, the word Dakhni. So both Urdu and Dakhni have the base or foundation in another language called Dehelvi. It's not another language, but Dehelvi was an unformed, unofficial, only spoken language only that existed in Delhi in the 12th, 13th, 13th, 14th centuries after Persian mixed with dialects in and around Delhi. That dialect called Dehelvi was used very specifically by Sufis to communicate with people. So that Dehelvi basically travels down to Maharashtra and later to Kannada, to Karnataka. So in Karnataka, in the 1400s, in Bidar, Bidar was the former capital of the Bahmani Empire. The Bahmani Empire. In 1460, you have Padamrao by Nizami, which is the first Dakhni literature that was formed. See, if you look at Bidar, Bidar is about 30 kilometers from Zahirabad in Telangana and about 50 kilometers from the Marathi-speaking areas. So, in a circle of 50 kilometers, you have about 3 languages. So that Dehelvi basically mixes with Kannada, Marathi, and Telugu, and that is the formation called Dakhni. That's about it. the word Urdu does not even exist in the 1400s. It is only much later under the Mughals and during the time of the Qutub Shahis in the 1600s, when during Shah Jahan's time, there are Mughal soldiers who are Persian and Hindi speaking. So Urdu is formed. So the word Urdu actually means army camp in Turkish. So because of the Persian and Hindi speaking army people under Shah Jahan, Urdu forms as a separate language altogether in the north. And because the Mughals capture Golconda and the entire Deccan after in 1687, Dakhni is eventually replaced by uh, the what am I saying? Dakhni is eventually replaced by Urdu, because when the Mughals come in, they actually bring in their proper because Urdu is, see, even until then it was only Persian that was considered to be a high level language. It is only much later when Urdu is officially brought in, and Dakhni continues to be a spoken language, but Urdu for all practical purposes is replaced. And also the thing is the person. So what happens after the Golconda's kingdom is captured? Also, the Dakhni poets here don't have any patronization. So there is one particular poet called Ahmad Wali. Ahmad Wali is given the credit for creating the modern Urdu script. He apparently created and took it to Delhi, and that takes Delhi by storm. So it's only after the 1700s when Urdu becomes like a big thing. So Urdu becomes a thing later, and so Urdu is basically something that replaces Dakhni, I mean, in terms of writing and reading, but the spoken language never changed. So it's a very weird thing in Hyderabad and in the Deccan, where people will read and write in Urdu, but they will speak in Dakhni. And Dakhni is spoken by everyone because it's a language that has a lot of regional words also. It's not only Persian words that are in Dakhni, right? So it's like that.
But the fusion is amazing in Hyderabad. I think this is the only city which has that kind of fusion in terms of so many languages mixing in one space and trying to, So there's, I think I'll ask Samir. I think this was a very good information. I think everybody in Hyderabad has to take note of this. जो हम बात कर रहे हैं वो actually असली में असलियत है कि वो दक्कनी है. It's not called Hyderabadi also. It's actually Dakhni. So Samir, what do you?
So Abhi, the thing is they also call it Hyderabadi because the thing is Abhi Hyderabad में क्या है? It is basically because of Urdu's influence. It is primarily Urdu that it is basically Urdu mixed with some bits and pieces of Dakhni. That's all is what I can say. But it's still not. It is not pure Urdu that we speak in. Obviously, as we all know, it is still Dakhni only. It is just that it is little more Urduized version, I guess. So it's a little different. That's why we can call it Hyderabadi. But Hyderabadi is nothing but another variant of Dakhni. Dakhni there are different variants. If you go to Karnataka, if you go to Bangalore, if you go to Mysore, there are people who will speak in Dakhni, but it will change from place to place. Even in Andhra Pradesh also, people in Rajahmundry, Guntur speak in Dakhni.
That's fascinating. Samir, any last questions? Because we're having like last 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, Pawan, you continue with the last question, please.
So, okay. So there's this, so a lot of misnomers have been, as you see, has been, debunked. That Tanasa is actually not dictator and Hyderabad, the language is actually not what you actually call it. There's a lot to Hyderabad. So in short, if I were to ask you, like, what is the main thing about Hyderabad that attracts you always? What is the main, if there is any? Because for us who live in Hyderabad, we know there's a particular aspect of, there's a lot of aspects. There's something called Hussain Sagar evokes nostalgia to us if we go out of the city. So what is that element of Hyderabad always like?
I mean, if you ask me, see, that there's a reason why a lot of North Indians also come and stay here. Because the city, I mean, North Indians also, it's easier for them to live here because Hyderabad, if you realize, is one city where there is no regional aggression, like say Bombay, where you have Marathi Manus kind of a thing. Hyderabadis are very mild mannered. They actually they're not people who are insecure about their city. Even people from Telangana for that matter. I mean, of course, we have Telangana movement, and there is a very valid reason for the statehood formation and all that. But in general, if you look at Hyderabad, I don't think we have racism issues in terms of how we treat outsiders. It has always been a city of people who have migrated here. This is one city where you can't say you are from a certain race, so that makes you Hyderabad. That's just absolute nonsense. This anybody who comes and stays here, it's like if you like the city, if you feel you're part of the culture, that's about it. You are as Hyderabadi as anybody else. You don't have to do anything. And that, for example, if you look at the Irani cafes in Hyderabad, in our city, which I really love, these are also migrants. Okay, yeah, exactly. So ये लोग हम पे बाहर से चाहे, ये लोग ईरान से आए about 100 years ago, and ये लोग आके cafe start करे. I mean, अगर ऐसा था बोल तो लोकल दुकाना बोलना था उनको, ये बाहर से आके हमारे को चाय पिला के जा रहे हैं बोल के. So that's really stupid, right? So I mean, if you think about it, and that, like I said, it's a city that has always thrived on multiculturalism, and thrives on immigration coming into the city. But of course, now if you look at the inward migration from North India into Hyderabad, it's also because they don't have anything there. I'm not saying that North India, I mean I'm not saying it's a bad place, but then if you look, I feel sorry for those states. You look at UP, Bihar, it's not as if they actually have something, because if you look at us, we are not people who will go to stay in, you say, UP or Bihar. We might go to Delhi or Bombay, but definitely not to those states, because there's nothing there for us. So yeah, I mean, this is a city. Basically, it's a very kind. It's a welcoming city in that sense. There are, of course, issues, as any other city or has issues, but I feel it's a city that has the core character of the city has thankfully still not changed. Maybe, of course, culturally every place evolves and changes, but I hope that the city continues to stay like this. So yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, I couldn't agree more on that. I've been, and just for your information, both of us are from HPS, so Hyderabad Public School. So
nice.
So that sort of connects us, and I mean, we can't get out of the Hyderabad thing. So, Samir, any last words before we wind up?
No, I mean, what I would like to say to anyone who's listening is that if you are more interested, definitely just take a look at my page, or if you feel like you still want to know about any of the things what we spoke about, you can just look at it in detail, because I have written. The whole point of the Hyderabad History Project is to make is to get more information out to the public, so that it's easier for them to access it. That has been the whole point, because I feel Hyderabadis don't know enough about Hyderabad, and that's why there is a lot of underappreciation. It's only when somebody from abroad comes and says, "Oh, I want to do this. I want to do that," is then when people realize there's so much of history here. So yeah, I just please learn about your city. You're more than welcome to come and check out my page. You can always ask me if you need any help as well.
And he organizes walks, and nowadays he's also organizing virtual walks, which you need to check it out. I'm definitely going to check out the one you're organizing tomorrow. That is there.
Yeah, please. Most welcome.
Yeah, so that's the end of it. I think our co-host has had some net issues, so he had to wind up. So that's been a fascinating conversation. We're looking forward to collaborating with you more on some specific Hyderabadi aspects, like language.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Let's do that in the future.
Great. That was great. It was a great conversation with you. See you.
Same. Thanks for having me. I will see you tomorrow.